Now I'm going to talk about the second story, or first, depending on how you want to view it. Vincent Vega and Marcellus Wallace's wife. This story takes place sometime after the opening of Pulp Fiction, because Vincent and Jules still have the briefcase, and they show up at this nightclub that Marcellus Wallace apparently owns. And at some point between then and now, they have changed clothes, because they were wearing these really cool suits in the opening. Now they're wearing the kind of clothes you'd wear to the beach. And just before Vincent and Jules arrive in this scene, we're introduced to Marcellus Wallace for the first time. And the way they introduce Marcellus Wallace in this movie is very well done. The way they introduce the character is meant to sort of have a bit of mysteriousness to it. Quentin Tarantino tries to build up just what an imposing figure the character is. So in the very first shot of the second story, we don't see Marcellus Wallace. We see the man who he's talking to, and the man he's talking to is a boxer named Butch Coolidge, played by one of the most beloved action stars of the past 30 years, Bruce Willis. And Bruce Willis is just sitting across from Marcellus Wallace with this cold, I'm not taking any of your shit kind of glare. And we hear Marcellus off camera, and as the scene goes on, it's established that Marcellus is trying to bribe Butch into throwing a fight, saying that Butch is reaching middle age and that he never was able to really get far in the world of boxing, that he was never able to really become a huge champion or star, and tells him that when he takes this bribe money he's going to give him, that he'll be able to relax and say that he made the right decision and that Marcellus Wallace was right. And during this scene, while Butch keeps a cool demeanor, the intense look on his face tells you everything he's thinking. He's thinking that this guy is an asshole, but also that he might be right. And Marcellus Wallace talks about it's a sad fact of life, and Willis's character, even though he doesn't want to admit it, you can kind of tell he kind of agrees, but at the same time he feels like he's better than better than the deal he's being offered. And the vibe I got was, you can tell that Butch, he's very insulted by all this, but he also knows that the guy's kind of right. He just doesn't want to admit it. And all this time, as I said, we don't see Marcellus Wallace's face. And until about 2 minutes into this scene, we finally get to see him. And what's the first thing we see? We see him from the back. And we just see the back of his head. And the back of his head, and this is interesting, the back of his head, he's big, black, bald, and he has a band-aid on the back of his head. Unclear why, but it's a pretty good image. An interesting fact, that's not how Quentin Tarantino wanted to open the scene. Originally he was just going to show his face, but the actor, when he came in, had a cut that he got from shaving, and the band-aid QT realized, this could work. And as you may have noticed, I haven't mentioned yet who plays Marcellus Wallace, and I just wanted to kind of build it up myself. The actor playing Marcellus Wallace, for anyone who has not seen Pulp Fiction, and part of me wonders why I'm even trying to be suspenseful, because anyone who has seen Pulp Fiction are probably the only people watching here right now, but it never hurts. Marcellus Wallace is played by one of the greatest badass character actors of all time, Ving Rhames. And if you don't know who he is, shame on you. Most mainstream audiences would probably know him as Luther, Tom Cruise's sidekick from the Mission Impossible movies. He's been in over, I think, 100 things. He's a great character actor, but he's one of those guys that apparently never says no to a project. Danny Trejo, Ray Wise, Eric Roberts. Not to say that's bad, just you can kind of get why someone who takes that many projects would be considered underrated. But regardless, Marcellus Wallace could arguably be Ving Rhames' best role. The role that everybody will know him for long after he's dead. And he just has a great, deep, you don't want to fuck with me voice. And the exchange between him and Willis after Marcellus goes on his whole, you could have been big, but you never were, and this is the best choice you have right now in your life. And when he hands the envelope with the cash, he says to Willis, you my nigga? And Bruce Willis, staying silent for a minute, goes, it would appear so. And he just takes the cash. Very simple, very small, but a well-done exchange of lines between these two characters. And then that's when Vincent and Jules arrive, and they've just gone through the whole getting the briefcase thing, and a little bit more that I'll get into later. And then Bruce Willis comes to the bar, and he asks for a product that appears in quite a few Tarantino movies. I might have mentioned this in my Reservoir Dogs video, but it's been over a year since I did that video, so my memory might be a little fuzzy at the moment. But Bruce Willis, he comes up to the bar that Travolta's at, and he's kind of sulking, and Willis says, give me a pack of red apples. For those who don't know, Quentin Tarantino fucking hates product placement. He doesn't like it. I don't know if he's against using actual things, but he just doesn't like the idea of, product placement, whether or not you gotta pay to use it or they pay you. It's a little mixed, I just know he doesn't particularly like it. So he makes up his own products, and a product that he uses, a fake product that he uses in virtually all of his movies, even his and a product that he uses in quite a lot of his movies, even Django Unchained, is Red Apple cigarettes. And this particular type of cigarettes, you see people smoking it in just about all the movies. In Kill Bill, there's a scene where Uma Thurman goes by this huge-ass billboard, and you see a woman smoking a cigarette, and we see a pack of red apples, and it looks like an apple with a worm in it. And I don't remember if the worm has a cigarette too, but red apples, Tarantino's cigarettes. And when I said that they were in Django Unchained, like, that movie takes place in the 1800s, but there's a scene apparently where a character has a box of tobacco, and the tobacco is red apple tobacco. I just think that's a good small thing. Like, it's not elaborated on too much, but if you pay attention, you will notice it in just about every Quentin Tarantino film. Anyway, after Willis orders his cigarettes, Travolta acts like a dick to him, just because that's kind of the character of Vincent Vega. He has friends, but overall he's a jerk, and even his friends, if they say something he doesn't like, he's easy to piss off. And we find that the reason that he was asking all about Marcellus Wallace's wife is that Wallace is going out of town, and he wants Vincent to take care of his wife. Remember what I said in the last part? And by that he means he wants him to take her out and go to like a nice restaurant, have dinner with her, make sure that she has a nice time. And everybody keeps giving Vincent a look saying, you're taking Mia Wallace out on a date? And he keeps going, it is not a date. And he says that he knows the rules, the boundaries, don't fuck with the boss's wife. And It's interesting, this whole setup, because there's not a lot of elaboration or direct facts on what exactly Marcellus Wallace or Vincent Vega, like, why does he want him to take care of his wife? And Vincent at one point sees it in his head as Marcellus maybe is having him do this because he's trying to test his loyalty. Either that, or he's very trusting and maybe a bit naive. But that's Vincent's theory, and that's the theory that I think makes the most sense. He kind of trusts him, but he also wants to test his loyalty. And you can tell Vincent's maybe a little intimidated by the whole idea. He's never met Mia, and he doesn't want to fuck this up. And this bartender in this scene says, after they've joked about it, and Vincent gets very defensive, he goes, "Hey man, my name is Paul, and this shit's between y'all." That actor is Paul Calderon, another good character actor who's been in some great crime movies like King of New York. And originally Paul Calderon was offered the role of Jules, or he auditioned. An interesting fact, originally Paul Calderon was up for the role of Jules because he gave such a good performance, but Samuel L. Jackson, who Quentin Tarantino, according to what Jackson said, originally wrote the role for him. He just gave an even better audition. So good. Paul Calderon's good, but I can't see anyone else doing Jules Winfield justice. And then the next part has Vincent going to a drug dealer, and this is the other big part of his character. Vincent Vega is a heroin user, but he goes to this dealer who he knows from many years ago, who he hasn't seen in a long time while he was in Amsterdam, a man named Lance, played by Eric Stoltz. A very good actor who did a lot of great films in the 80s, 90s, but hasn't really been seen a lot that lately, I think. And the Lance character, he's a fun character. He always wears a bathrobe, and we don't get a ton of scenes with him, only the scenes where Vincent goes to see him. But I get the impression Lance comes off like a guy who never leaves his house, which from what I heard is the case for some drug dealers, and was also the case for the dealer in Roger Avery's The Rules of Attraction. But Lance, I showed Pulp Fiction to a friend of mine many years ago, one of those friends I keep mentioning, and he said in his opinion Lance was a friendly dealer, like not the dangerous type. He could be a bit stern, he could try to lay down ground rules. And in his opening scene, he compares the stuff he sells, like he compares himself to a black dealer going, "Am I a nigger? Is this Inglewood?" Saying, "White people who know the difference between good and bad come to me." In my opinion, I don't think the character, even though it's very brief, we don't get a much depth type of character development scenes with him. Like I said earlier, I don't think that makes the character a racist. I think it just shows he's trying to talk the language with his clients. And but he does come off as very friendly, a bit jerky, but they're all jerks. And after showing some samples to Vincent agrees to buy the more expensive kind. And during the rest of the scene, a subtle but important fact is brought up. Lance is going through his box while measuring the heroin, and he says, "I'm all out of balloons. Is a baggie okay?" What he means by that is, it's a way to distinguish cocaine from heroin, because cocaine's usually put in baggies. So that way you don't get the two mixed up. This becomes an important element later. And the other characters in the scene are Jody, Lance's wife, played by the ever lovely Rosanna Arquette. And the other character in the scene is Trudy, some customer or friend who Lance and Jody just let crash at their place. and get high. She's played by Brona Gallagher. And there's not much of that character other than that she is always smoking a bong. And Jodie, Rosanna Arquette, she plays a pretty cool her character's pretty cool, and she's like a punk chick who has like 20 piercings all over, and she's got a limit to how much verbal abuse that she'll take from her husband, because like Lance is ordering her around and not thanking her, and she acts stubborn and bitchy, but it's completely understandable. But also, she has her moments where she generally is being a bitch, but overall, she's a pretty cool character, and she has some pretty funny moments. Originally, Quentin Tarantino wanted Pam Grier to play Jodie, but as Quentin put it, he just couldn't see Pam Grier being pushed around like the way this character is. Yeah, Pam Grier, she only plays the tough roles. Jackie Brown. And what follows is one of the film's most famous moments, I think, at least for me. Vincent, before going to pick up Mia, stays at Lance's place just for a few minutes so that he can light up and shoot up the heroin. And we get this great, well-done sequence with some real trippy-sounding music, and these great close-up establishing shots of Vincent taking out a little bag he has with needles and the right supplies to shoot up drugs. And we see him heating it up, and we get this great shot of him sticking the needle. It's pretty cringy, but also how a needle, yeah, like that is how a needle is when you, that is what a needle looks like when you stick it into your vein. We see the liquidized heroin in the needle, and we see, before he shoots it in, we see him pull back, and the blood gets sucked in, and then it goes into his vein, and it's a very graphic drug use scene. And throughout this part, we cut back and forth between him shooting up and him driving. And John Travolta does a good job acting out a guy who isn't high off his ass, but he is high and he's kind of enjoying it. But also, it's hard to describe. There's something more to this scene than just a guy getting high. And as I said, it's never clear if Vincent is an addict, like a full-blown addict. The whole scene is scary, in a way. It's well done, it's cool, but also it has a sense of unease that I'm pretty sure most people will pick up on. And the scene that happens after Vincent's very surreal heroin buzz is we finally arrive at Marcellus Wallace's house, and we get to see Mia. And just like Marcellus, the final reveal of Mia is built up and gives her a bit of a mysterious edge, showing that she can be just as intimidating as her husband. And Mia Wallace is played by another one of Quentin Tarantino's regulars, Uma Thurman, who Quentin has called his muse. Apparently being Quentin Tarantino's muse doesn't save you from making career choices like my super ex-girlfriend. But joking aside, I fucking love Uma Thurman. In the roles where she's done good, she has been really fucking great. And her character of Mia Wallace is one of the more complex characters. Like, on the surface, she doesn't seem that way, but throughout her performance, you see subtle little things that show that this character has a bit more than what she tries to make her personality appear to everybody around her. And I feel like Uma Thurman, she definitely gave an Oscar. Like I said, I'm a little mixed on John Travolta's Oscar nomination, even though I think he is fucking great. I just don't feel like he should have been nominated for Best Leading Actor, because this film really has no leading actor. But Uma Thurman, she got nominated for Best Supporting Actress for her performance as Mia Wallace, and I'd say her nomination was pretty fair. The character of Mia in her opening scene, Vincent arrives at the house and he just sort of walks around checking, wondering where she is, and he's like, he just looks very cool. I thought Travolta, he looked very cool in this scene. And Mia, we see, is in a security room watching him over many sets of TVs, and we don't see her face at first, like Marcellus. We see the back of her head, then we see her red lipsticked lips. Very, very sexy looking. And she speaks very seductively, but also in a tone that doesn't suggest that she's trying to be slutty, just that she's trying to mess with him. And I say the character of Mia, the good way to describe her is, she comes off like someone you'd want to hang out with for a few minutes. Like, she has her fun side, but after a while you might get a little annoyed by her. And during this scene, we get this song called Son of a Preacher Man by Dusty Springfield, and it just fits the scene perfectly. And Travolta, he goes to the bar, makes himself a drink, but not before sniffing it. And then we cut to Mia in her room, and before going down to meet him, she snorts up 3 lines of coke. And then she goes down, and once again, we still don't see her fucking face yet. We see a close-up of her bare feet as she walks around. Another trademark of Quentin Tarantino. I think he's admitted he has a foot fetish. And then we cut to the restaurant that they're going to, and we finally see her. And Uma Thurman, in Pulp Fiction, she looks nothing like what she usually does. And she pulls off the look she has very well. She has this very drapey, Frenchy-looking haircut. At least that's what I think. She has a very dark look to her. And the character, she comes off as, she is someone who's in charge. Given who her husband is, she has a lot of authority over the people who work for him. She loves to be a smartass and mess with people. But at the same time, I got a sense of unhappiness from the character. Vincent, when he talks with her, brings up the story of the guy who apparently almost got killed for giving her a foot massage. And when he says, "I heard something happened to him because of you," she at first seems intrigued. But when he says that her husband almost killed him for rubbing her feet, she seems almost horrified at the thought of that being real. It's hard to explain, but I think the best moment with her that shows that maybe she's not happy is when Vincent brings up the fact that she was once in a TV pilot, and almost immediately Mia lights up. She just starts talking. You can see a lot of energy and some genuine passion in her when she talks about this failed pilot, and she just describes the whole plot out perfectly and describes all the main characters, including her character. You just see her say it with such love of the idea of telling a story on film or on TV, and you get the sense she really wishes that the pilot had been picked up, that she was still an actress and that she still had a chance of making a career in that field. So as I said, there's a lot more to this character than I feel like most will give her credit for. She's not just a shallow coke addict. She says the show that she almost was a part of would have been called Fox Force 5, a show about 5 foxy ladies who are all badass and are skilled in various ways of fighting and like martial arts or knives and shit. Sound familiar? I could just tell this is a part that I kind of relate to this character, because when you have a project and you talk about it, it's a little hard not to have some passion when you talk about it, not to really feel excited when you talk about it, to really try to get people to understand why it meant so much. And before I forget about it, the restaurant that they go to is honestly one of the coolest fucking restaurants I've ever seen in a movie. The restaurant is called Jack Rabbit Slim's, and Vincent's a little perplexed when they arrive, and I honestly would not be as what the fuck as he is, but given that he's a hitman and he works for a crime organization, I think this is the kind of thing anybody from that field would be like if they came to a place like this. Jack Rabbit Slim's, it's not a real restaurant, but I have been to a place kind of like it. Anyone in my audience who has been to Disney World, who has been to the Hollywood Studios park that's there, anybody who's been there, I ask, have you ever heard of or have you ever eaten at a place called the Sci-Fi Diner? That's what Jack Rabbit Slim's reminds me of. The Sci-Fi Diner in Hollywood Studios is a restaurant where instead of tables, they have cars, like with tables in them, and you go there and they give you your food, and it's kind of styled after the 1950s. And then they have this huge ass projection screen, and they play movie trailers on it from the 1950s. It's a pretty cool place in Disney World, and it's worth going to. They have good burgers, good fries. But when watching Pulp Fiction in this part, that's what Jack Rabbit Slim's remind me of, the Sci-Fi Diner in Disney World. It's not as big, it's kind of smaller, and every table is not a car. Like, they do have car tables in it, which I thought was really fucking cool. I would totally eat at a place like that, and some things it has that the Sci-Fi Diner doesn't have. All the waiters are lookalikes, acting like celebrities from the 1950s. The maitre d' is Ed Sullivan. Some of the waiters are Marilyn Monroe and Mamie Van Doren. The waiter who serves Vincent and Mia is Buddy Holly, but guess who plays the Buddy Holly waiter? Steve Buscemi. And I read that this was all just a reference, in a way, like an in-joke reference to his role in Pulp Fiction, where he played a guy Mr. Pink, who never tipped waiters or waitresses. And although his role is very small, Steve Buscemi gets to deliver what I think is one of the most clever lines Quentin Tarantino has ever written. It's when Buddy Holly asks Mia, who orders a shake, "How do you want that, Amos and Andy or Martin and Lewis?" And what he means by that is, Amos and Andy was a black comedy duo, and Martin and Lewis was a white comedy duo. So basically what he means is, do you want that chocolate or vanilla? I just think that's very clever. And Jack Rabbit Slim's has a lot of 1950s type of nostalgic shit in it. A lot of recreating the period, and Vincent gives a good interpretation of the place. He says, I think it's like a wax museum with a pulse. And the place also it's littered with Roger Corman movie posters. And I'm a huge Roger Corman buff. The more me and Quentin Tarantino have in common, the more I hope someday our paths cross. But anyway, I recognize some of the posters. Attack of the Crab Monsters, Sorority Girl, Rock All Night. But yeah, in the end, Jackrabbit Slims, I kind of wish this place existed. And in the shake that Mia orders is a shake that costs $5. This leads to another funny moment where John Travolta, curious about how a milkshake could cost $5, takes a sip and he's like, "God damn, that's a pretty fucking good milkshake. Don't know if it was worth $5, but it's very good." And then the scene that comes after that is Mia showing that she's really in charge. She orders Vincent to participate with her in a dance contest for some plastic trophy. And we get to see a sight that's always great to watch, John Travolta dancing. And you pay attention to the scene and you can tell that even though it's been years since Saturday Night Fever, Travolta can still cut a rug. And while Uma Thurman, she's not awful, she does some pretty decent moves, but you can tell it's Travolta who has all the skills. What Uma Thurman does, any stripper could do, but what John Travolta does, that's from a guy you can tell has had a lot of training and has prepared and has worked hard throughout his life. And then he does the famous everybody knows that scene from Pulp Fiction, but for anyone who doesn't know where Tarantino got that from, that move is from the 1960s Batman show, from this dance that Adam West's Batman would do called the Bat-Toosie. Something that most Batman fans do not like. Not surprised. And after the famous jitterbug scene, Mia and Vincent come back to her place and we see they won. And they have a sort of moment where they just look at each other, and earlier at the restaurant they had talked about how you know you found someone special when you have an uncomfortable silence. And you can tell Vincent kind of likes her, but he knows that he's not going to cross this path. And you wonder if Mia wants him to, or if she once again is just fucking with him. But Vincent then goes, "I'm going to take a piss." And Mia, for some reason, this grosses her out. But he's in the bathroom debating with himself, saying, and gives a plan that I think is actually a pretty good one. Go out, have a drink, be polite, say goodnight, go home, jerk off, that's all you're gonna do. And while he's in the bathroom debating what to do, Mia just dances, and she's wearing Vincent's coat. And after jigging around a little bit, she gets on the couch and puts her hand in his pocket and pulls out the little baggie of heroin. And then what follows is one of the, not the darkest part comes in the next story, but one of the darkest parts of the film, where shit becomes more serious than it has already. Like, until then, this movie has been violent, it's been funny, but it hasn't really become grim. Mia lays out the heroin, thinking it's cocaine because baggy, and she snorts a whole line of heroin like this long, and almost immediately she realizes it's not coke, but it's too late. And we see her face and her eyes water up, her nose starts to bleed, and then it fades to black. And when it cuts back, she's on the floor, her face is puffy, her eyes swollen, blood's leaking from her nose, and there's this white stuff. I later found out it's supposed to be mucus seeping out of her mouth. And when Vincent comes back, we hear him go, "Listen, I gotta go," and then he sees her and he's like, "Oh, Jesus Christ," and then he grabs her, and when he touches her face, all the mucus just comes out, and Vincent's like, "Oh, fuck me, fuck me!" And then he just gets up in his car, and he just speeds down the city streets, yelling, "Don't die on me." This once again shows Vincent's, maybe some of his few positives, but also his flaws. You think maybe he really cares about her, but he makes it pretty clear he's doing this maybe because he does. There are scenes that imply he does care about her, but at the same time, for the most part, he's trying to save her just because he knows Marcellus will kill him. So he goes to Lance, and Lance is at home in his bathrobe as usual, watching a Three Stooges short. And the interesting fact, Quentin Tarantino, he loves the Three Stooges. Once again, so do I. And the short that Lance is watching is called Brideless Groom. It's one of the Three Stooges shorts that's in the public domain. And there have been hundreds of DVDs with this short. And while it's okay to sell it, I have a point with this. Even though Tarantino could use the short, he couldn't use the image of the Three Stooges. Like, he couldn't show Moe, Larry, or Shemp. So, for this scene where Lance is watching it, they had to edit the scene. Like, the shot from the short you see on the TV is actually it's cropped to focus on a bunch of characters, while the Three Stooges, who were when you watch the short, you'll see that this scene, Shemp is on the left side, but they completely cut him out. Interesting way to work around it. Interesting way to work around the copyright bullshit. I just had to mention that. The following scene has Vincent calling Lance, demanding that he help him. Lance telling him no, and just saying, do not bring some ODing bitch to my place. And the following 5 minutes is some of the most heart-beating, suspenseful moments you will ever see in a movie, where Uma Thurman, I'm kind of surprised the character didn't die while they were trying to find what they needed to help her, but Travolta shows up. Lance at first is like, "No way," and then he yells, "This is Marcellus Wallace's wife. Do you know who Marcellus Wallace is? And if you do not help me, I will be forced to tell him that I went to you and that you let her die." It shows, like I said, for the most part, they're in it just to save themselves. But he brings her in and everybody's running everywhere. Rosanna Arquette comes out. She's like, "What's wrong with her?" She's ODing, and she's like, "Get her the fuck out!" And they just are yelling, "Fuck you, fucking bitch!" And they're just, it's a hectic scene, and you feel every moment of it. But once again, it has moments where it can be both at the same time suspenseful, but also kind of funny. So what happens is Lance gets, he's a dealer, so he has a bunch of supplies in case of emergencies. They get a needle and this medicine called adrenaline. I don't know exactly. I'm not a medical expert. I'm not a car expert, not a medical expert. I'm not a video game expert. I'm not an expert on a lot of shit. But it's YouTube. Obviously, some people are going to give me shit. But they work as fast as they can, and what they have to do is they have to stick the needle right into Mia's chest. And as this scene happens, you're just waiting for the inevitable. And I just can't stress any further how well done the build-up is. Because when it finally happens, we the audience, we're sitting there, and if we're not sweating, then we feel like we are about to. Vincent has the needle, and He's about to stab her with it. And then and then she just comes back. She just jumps up and screams and just is breathing hard. All with the needle still sticking right in here, and it's very cringy looking. The whole scene, when it's over, Rosanna Arquette, she just cracks a one-liner, and just like that, we all can breathe. Like, Vincent almost passes out, but we all feel like passing out, almost, and it's said that some people actually did when they watched this scene. Not joking, apparently some people I heard actually passed out watching the needle scene Pulp Fiction. I heard of at least one instance, but if it happens to one, it can happen to many. But after this, Vincent takes Mia home, and get the impression, and you can tell this is really the last big moment they're going to have together. And showing once again he's out just for himself. He has her promise not to tell Marcellus about it. And the way she's acting, you wonder, she says she could handle this, and she already acts like someone who is unhappy and has a lot of darkness going through her head. But after something like this, you wonder how would she handle it, but it's hard to describe. You feel like she will by doing what she does best, probably lying. And before she goes, she asks Vince if she wants to hear this joke that she told for her pilot, which she says is not funny. And Vincent, who looks like he really will collapse, he agrees to hear it. 3 tomatoes are walking down the street: Papa Tomato, Mama Tomato, and Baby Tomato. Baby Tomato starts logging behind. Papa Tomato gets angry, goes over to Baby Tomato and smushes him and says, "Ketchup." It's a dumb one, but even I can kind of see the cleverness of that. And after she's had her back turned to him and goes inside to probably crash for a day or 3, he just watches her walk and blows her a kiss. Showing, I think, that Vincent does have some humanity in him, some human moments. But out of the 3 main characters, Vincent is definitely the one who has the least good qualities. The second story in Pulp Fiction is fucking great. It shows off Tarantino's love of movies and the old culture the best, and it has a great drama aspect to it, as far as I wouldn't call it a warning against drugs, but it definitely can have that vibe to it, and it has great performances. And Travolta just rocked the ponytail. That's all I really gotta say, except one thing well, actually 2 things. First off, talked about how Mia, she OD'd while Vincent was in the bathroom. Every time in Pulp Fiction that Vincent Vega goes to the bathroom, something bad happens. And I will tell you the other two in the latter segments. And the last thing I want to talk about is a trivia story. Even though you could get it on IMDb, I think I can tell it better. John Travolta wanted to understand what it was like to be on heroin for his character, but he didn't want to actually take heroin, obviously. So Quentin Tarantino sent Travolta to speak to a friend of his, or someone he knew who was a recovering heroin addict. And the guy told Travolta, get plastered on tequila, and then sit yourself at the bottom of a warm pool, and only then will you have scratched the surface of what it's like to be on heroin. John Travolta, from what I heard, was kind of excited that his research would require him to get plastered on tequila, and he got his wife, Kelly Preston, to join him in the experiment at this hotel that had a pool where they had a built-in bar with it. And while it sounds interesting, I do wonder, did anyone, obviously because they're still alive, but did anyone think about the potential danger of getting drunk and going to the bottom of a pool? Just saying, it's a little concerning to hear, but it's an interesting thought as far as experimenting goes. Next segment, coming very soon.